First of all, for the first time in several years, I think governors have a little more space financially to do some things that heretofore was not available. It went through, I remember my first 2 years as governor, things were really tough, and so I didn't want to increase taxes, and I did. And so, you know, you got to start setting priorities. And I think financially the governors are in much better shape today than they were 2 or 3 years ago. They got to be smart about where they make these new investments. There are legacy problems throughout the states that I think only governors can fix. They need some flexibility from the feds to do it, but some states, and we've done some of this work internally, some states are facing, well, most states, 23 to 25% of their budget are Medicaid. Well, we got to get this big challenge for a governor. You got to get it under control. You need to get to Washington. You need to be able, I mean, I know your governor's looking to be a much more comprehensive, wholesale, across the board, everybody get insurance kind of deal. But for those who are eligible for that program, that's a huge challenge for governors. I think the way it's answered is the way we basically did it with welfare. You convince Washington, D.C., if you're going to restrict the amount of money you get, then don't tell us how we got to spend it. Let's give us waivers and let us design our own systems. I think a lot of the states have huge legacy costs associated with pensions that are out of control. That's tough to say. And I don't think you go backward on the pensions that you have committed to your public service employees, but you got to be tough enough and smart enough to readjust for the future. Look, I'm Pennsylvania. In the 50s and 60s, when the steel mills were pumping out billions of tons of steel, labor and management got together and made promises to each other that neither one knew they would have been able to keep. There's a lot of people out there that would probably, in retrospect, had a little bit less of a pension promised and a lot more reserve built up in order to take care of the pension. So, again, leadership, it's one thing to cut a ribbon. It's another thing to figure out a way to get somebody back in the closed facility. So it's one thing to do, but I think one of the challenges of leadership, particularly with the governors, are dealing with some of these legacy challenges. I think changing demographics of the workforce, I don't know about, but federally, I think in terms of retirement, I'm sure that plays across the board within the states. A lot of people retire in the next 3, 5, 7 years. And that plays into what are the governors doing about education? I mean, there's no child left behind, but with a global competitive marketplace, we've got to do something now about the kind of education we're giving our kids. And people have been talking about it for 30 years. There has been a modest change. We need somehow, I think, governors to get more kids, and this is where parents and teachers and everybody, we got to get more kids in the sciences. We need a better brand of public education. To a certain extent, it's money. In another area, it's also leadership. So I think there are plenty of challenges with the governors. But I also think there's some great opportunities. I mean, one of the things that I enjoy doing, it's obviously Governor Schwarzenegger enjoys doing it, it's just, since there doesn't seem to be a lot of action in the national level about the environment, governors can do things on their own dealing with the environment. We had a land recycling program, became a model for the country. So, I mean, I think the opportunities for governors and people who support the governors are probably as abundant today as they've ever been. Some dealing with legacy challenges, and others with just filling the void. Nature abhors a vacuum, so do citizens. And if they're not going to see it being done at the national level, they don't mind if the governor or the governor's team goes in and fills the void. So that's an exciting time to be a governor, particularly when the treasury is a little fuller today than they were a couple years ago. But the other challenge with the governor, make sure you don't spend it all because you can build up the rainy day fund.